everyone. Welcome this morning, and I'm very excited to be able to talk to you a little bit. And I'm going to talk about some key challenges that we're all facing in graduate education and ETDs. But before I begin, I can't help but talk about King Richard III, since we're here in Leicester and what has now become known as his final resting place. It's very exciting. But when you think about King Richard III and his final resting place, I couldn't help but think about the parallels to our ETD conference today. The parallels are many. You know, what we're trying to do is make research more discoverable, and obviously King Richard III became discoverable not long ago. He was lost and kind of buried as dissertations and theses were in paper format, and we as a community are here trying to unearth them and make them discoverable. So I think there are quite a lot of parallels. And, you know, these guys were looking for him for a long time, and they finally found him. They knew he was around here somewhere, but at last they found him. And now I'm going to get a little bit more serious and talk about the 5 trends that we see here in graduate education and with ETDs. But a quick word about my perspective at ProQuest. First, these observations are based upon the experience of ProQuest as a publisher and employer of hundreds of PhD students and former students since the founding of the company in 1938. We've published 1,700 schools, PhDs and master's theses over the past near 80 years, and so we've collected a lot of data and a lot of feedback from universities. The first area I'd like to talk about is no surprise to anyone today in terms of a trend, which is collaboration is global. You can see that just by looking around the room and seeing the global audience that the ETD conference today brings. But, you know, for those tenured faculty members, collaboration as a global enterprise can almost be taken for granted. The faculty members that are tenured have a vast network of colleagues built up over decades or even, you know, several decades. These faculty members are like a fish swimming in water. Often they don't think about their surroundings or don't even think that they're in water or know they're in water. But before you can get into that depth of understanding and really immersing yourself in your environment, you're first obviously a young researcher. So you need to build a network of connections and a network of peers to draw from and collaborate with. So how are people doing that lately? Well, we've seen a number of websites crop up to put researchers in touch with each other or to just help each other through the graduate process. One of my favorites is Get a Life PhD. That's a very pragmatic website that talks to folks, particularly those who are kind of from a non-traditional path, the students that are a little bit older when they're starting their PhD, talking about how to grapple with family issues and how to make connections when you're in a very, very busy time of your life. We also have a blog called Revise and Resubmit, which is an online community and network for people who too often don't have a network like that. So we're trying to bring together students, grad students, and early career professionals. The second trend I'd like to talk about today are careers beyond the traditional professoriate. You know, in the USA today, we're seeing a lot of pressure mounting on tenure-track positions. The political climate is really moving in what we would call almost an anti-tenure direction. Retiring faculty are increasingly being replaced by adjunct professors. A study by the American Association of University Professors found that just in the last 3 years alone, the amount of tenure-track positions increased only by 2%, while the amount of adjunct non-tenure-track faculty positions increased by 11%. But when you couple that with the PhD rate increasing by 3 or 4%, according to the Council of Graduate Schools, you have a really problematic situation in the job market. So where do those newly minted PhDs go to find a job? Well, the private sector is increasingly the choice for many of those folks. But unfortunately, what we found is that many PhDs don't know how to market themselves outside of the academic arena. Many don't know how to transfer the work that they did in graduate school to the private sector. So what we've done at ProQuest is provide feedback to universities regarding how PhDs can market themselves. And as an employer of many folks with PhDs throughout the ProQuest organization, we find that there's a lot of qualities that PhD students should focus on and talk about when they're seeking a non-traditional path. Those types of things to talk about include their self-directed work habits, quick studies in new technology and techniques, and those are skills that will be useful in almost every profession. They should also talk about their general leadership skills and communication skills. Obviously, when you're creating an ETD, and traditionally now, or typically now, often a non-traditional ETD with supplemental files, multimedia, etc., they're bringing a lot of technology to the plate. What we find, though, is a lot of skills that are truly specific only to PhDs. They're particularly valuable in what's been termed the global knowledge economy. These PhDs have important contributions to make to many sectors outside of the academy that rely on rigorous specialized research and evidence-based decision-making. With PhDs' ability to formulate research questions, conduct independent and collective research projects, absorb and digest great amount of information, observe patterns and weigh evidence, these folks are very valuable to the private sector as well as to the academy. We believe it's important for industry to support these efforts by providing information about the evolving and specialized skill sets needed for the wide range of professional possibilities outside of the academy. In short, before leaving the university, we recommend that students prepare themselves for a career within the academy as well as a career in the private sector so they'll have maximum flexibility in the future. The third trend I'd like to talk about today is the increase in professional PhD degrees. Professional doctorate degrees are focused on imparting a skill set rather than a traditional training and research methodology. These are becoming very popular, as we can all understand, because they are thought to facilitate a more immediate applicability to the work environment. But some criticize these degrees precisely because they do not impart the traditional research focus. The aim of the professional doctorate is to find a novel approach to integrating professional and academic knowledge. According to the UK Economic and Social Research Council, students undertaking a professional doctorate are expected to, quote, make a contribution to both theory and practice in their field and to develop professional practice by making a contribution to professional knowledge. But common to all professional doctorates is the completion of an original piece of research. The research is traditionally presented as a thesis, as with a traditional PhD, and it's examined by an expert in the field. However, as I mentioned, these are very controversial, particularly in some disciplines today. And it's controversial because in our experience, we find that professional doctorates include a large taught or directed study element, which is formally assessed. These components frequently include both the teaching of research methods and also components related to broadening or deepening students' understanding of the disciplines in which they are researching. So the professional doctorate is a polarizing topic today. You probably have an opinion on them, but we urge the community to think about them in what they offer new and traditional students, and particular students who want to gain a PhD but don't want to follow that traditional path. The fourth trend that I'd like to talk about today is sharing of research. So we're here discussing ETDs, obviously, and sharing research in terms of ETDs is something that we're seeing a lot more of. Ensuring discovery and access of ETDs is critical for research, not primarily now because research is not the musing of a lone thinker. It's not the product of one person. It's a team of doers who are making things happen. Theoretical physicists might close their doors and fill up their dry erase boards with ideas, but we know that few problems today are solved by a lone mathematician in their attic office. So, particularly when you want to redo the research, and replicating research is something that more and more folks are talking about and is becoming important, typically replicating that research is done by a team of researchers or a team of professors. When you peer inside the departments, you see more and more curricula that are emphasizing team-based problem solving to develop the core skills of the discipline. Economics, math, physics, and social work all rely on teams, and we expect this trend to continue. The last trend that I'd like to talk about today is the increased need for metrics. In the United States, we've seen a trend for performance-based funding for higher education beginning to take hold. Programs and departments that can demonstrate success are being rewarded with increased funding. And at ProQuest, we've been asked to provide data to answer questions like, how often are our institution's theses accessed and viewed by the academic community? How often are they accessed by peers or globally? How do my institution's theses compare to usage of my peer institutions? And what do the patterns of usage reveal about the problems that our research is finding? What about the value of my institution's scholarly output in the academic community? And then what might these high or low usage rates signal to key audiences? So next month we're releasing at ProQuest a demo of our new dissertation dashboard that will answer a lot of these questions. Universities that send their thesis to ProQuest will be able to take a look at historical usage trends. They'll be able to look at usage by country. They'll be able to find out their most popular dissertations and theses with the academic community around the world. And one of the most interesting things we've been told is that the universities who want to benchmark themselves against their peer universities, they'll be able to do that either at a university setting or by department. So they'll be able to see their university's usage compared to peer universities' usage. This is going to be a demo. We're going to be looking for a lot of feedback about this resource in terms of how we can provide and make it even more usable in the future. So I'd like to thank you again for allowing us to sponsor ETD 2014, and I'll turn it back over to Scott for the next presenter.